Saludos desde Portugal, saludos desde Estoril, saludos desde el circuito Fernanda, Pires da Silva. Mucho calor, como podéis ver, mucho sol, lleva haciendo mucho calor todo este fin de semana. Venimos de hacer unos test, unos libres, una clasificación y ahora arrancaremos con la primera carrera del fin de semana, una carrera en la que tenemos un poleman que ya conocemos. Tenemos al líder del campeonato, Théophile Nael, saliendo desde la primera posición. Desde la segunda plaza, su rival en el campeonato, Enzo Deligny y compatriota. Tercera plaza para Christian Ho. Y atentos, Valerio Rinichella, que está segundo en el campeonato, sale desde la octava posición. Va a tener que remar a contracorriente para conseguir atrapar a Théophile Nael. Estamos a breves instantes, ya veis, los coches en mis espaldas, a punto de que arranque ya lo que será la primera carrera del fin de semana. Nos queda muy poquito, nosotros os dejamos con Joel y disfrutar mucho de la primera carrera de esta quinta ronda de la temporada.
So as we get to the start of what's set to be, I'm sure, a fantastic day's worth of racing, it's going to be amazing to see how this race gets on. As the cars get set to get underway very shortly for what's going to be an amazing day. We are all set for what should be another excellent day. So, looking at the grid now, it is TFR Niall who starts on pole position for race number 1, alongside Enzo Deligny on the front row of the grid. Then for row number 2, we're going to quickly scroll through the rest of it. It is going to be Christian Ho alongside on the second row of the grid, alongside Matteo De Palo. Then it's Pedro Claro and Andres Cardenas on the third row. Row 4 is Chiani Alazzari and Valerio Rinichella. Then it's Ricardo Gracia and Valentin Kluss on the fifth row of the grid. Row 6 is Alex Ninovic and Japanese driver Hiyu Yamakoshi from Federica Al-Rafai and Theodore Jensen. Then it is Noah Strumsted, who a little bit further down in qualifying for this one, starting back in 15th, ahead of Lynn Hodenius. And then it is Jesse Carrasqueda back in 17th place, a little lower than he actually qualified back in 7th. And the reason for that, quickly, the reason why he's actually starting it further back than he should be is he received a third reprimand for the season, which means that he has to take a 10-place grid penalty. Originally qualified 7th, which means he's now back into 17th. He starts on the 9th row of the grid alongside Geronimo Berrio, but it's Noah Lyle, another driver a bit further back than he really should be, on row 10 alongside Juan Cota. Then it's Fernanda Barrichello, son of Rubens Barrichello and brother of Rudy Barrichello, who races the race course in Stock Car, Brazil. They're alongside Pablo Salazar, the son of Stefan Salazar. Then it's Luciano Morano and Alvise Rodella. Sebastian Murray and Eric Genet come next from Alexander Abkajava and Maximiliano Restrepo. Griffin Peebles and Georgi Zurawski are on the 15th row of the grid for Flavio Oliveri and Carl Bennett. And the back row of the grid, it is Isaac Barashi and Kai Darianani, who make up the 34 starters as they head off onto the formation lap for the first time. So as I mentioned, in terms of the temperature this weekend, it is incredibly warm. In terms of the ambient temperatures, 34 degrees. Track temperature, 49 degrees out there this afternoon. So this first of 3 races this weekend is certainly going to be an absolute scorcher for sure. In terms of the championship coming into this weekend, it is Théophile Nael who leads the way on... I can tell you how many points. He leads the way from Valerio Rinichella in 2nd place. Enzo Deligny is coming in 3rd from 4th placed Christian Ho, and then Pedro Claro rounds out the top 5. And then in 6th, so it's Théophile Nael 196 points, Rinichella on 141, Enzo Deligny on 123, Christian Ho on 120, and then 109 for Pedro Claro. Noah Strumsted comes next in 6th on 96, 91 for Matteo De Paolo. It's Chiani Alazzari on 91 points, Andres Cardenas on 65, and Geronimo Berrio on 33. So just that huge haul of points towards the top really shows just how many dominant drivers there have been all the way throughout the season so far. And so we'll wait to see how they can work themselves at the front of the field. Of course, looking at the qualifying performance, and so Deligny, he's one of the young Red Bull juniors, doing an incredible job to get second on the grid in the Red Bull livery machine. Just see him going through and shot there for the chicane. They are using the full Grand Prix circuit this weekend, which means they are using the additional Gancho chicane, which they're going through. It's quite a unique uphill chicane, which was brought in after the very tragic death of Ayrton Senna. And of course, the final corner named after Ayrton Senna as well. And this circuit, of course, has seen plenty of Portuguese Grand Prix over the years, and we now move into a point of the season when it's going to be really crucial for every single team to pick up every single point possible. We'll wait and see how this race plays out. It is going to be quite an exciting affair up at the front of the field. So Tecnicar then starting from pole position, looking to try and take what would be his 6th win of the season if he can manage it. Second, of course, as Deligny took that one victory previously at at Aragon. Christian Ho, who also has a victory to his name in the second race at Aragon, and Mateo de Palo, who is up in 7th place. He took the victory in the 3rd race at Spa. This is the only other circuit outside of Spain which the champion visits, and so you see ever popular and going to experience a former F1 Grand Prix venue. These guys will see exactly how they can make this work. So just getting set for the start of the race. Ends that you can see Tecnicar on the right-hand side of the screen. And on the left-hand side is Enzo Deligny, and of course the rest of the field, Christian Ho, Mateo de Palo on the 2nd row, Pedro Claro and Andres Cardenas on row 3. Row 4, Jesse Carrasquedo and Chiani Alazari. Then Valerio Rincella and Ricardo Gracia round out the top 10. The last few cars are just starting to slot themselves into position. And once they're there and the green flag is at the back, the red lights will go on, and race 1 of 3 of the weekend for round number 5 of the 2023 F4 Spanish Championship will get underway. What can Tecnicar do then from the front row of the grid? What can Enzo Deligny and co try to do and stop him? Up towards the final, the red lights coming on now to see if we can get ourselves underway anytime second. Revs are going to rise here at Estoril, and race 1 of the weekend for the F4 Spanish Championship 2023 is all set to go. The red lights are on, the Revs build. And they're underway in racing as 1 or 2 cars didn't get away strongly, but it's a good start from Tecnicar, who wins the race down towards turn 1. He's got Deligny in his slipstream. Christian Ho's going with him. The MP Motorsport cars are in the mix. With 3 abreast up the inside, looking there with Deligny. Around the outside, looks to go, I think, possibly Christian Ho to try and get through into what would be 3rd and 2nd place. Out of the first few corners for the first time. Now onto the short straight towards the Lamy corner. And it is going to be Nile that leads it then. From Deligny in 2nd place, Ho in 3rd, Pedro Claro's up to 4th place, with his teammate Cardenas in the mix trying to get past that. Rinicella trying to get past Cardenas for 5th position. Now they make their way out through the middle of the first part of the circuit. Now up towards the kink, towards the Parabolica Interior. The rest of the field streaming its way through. Nile holding the advantage as they make their way down towards the hairpin. This circuit very much similar to that of Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, which will host the final round of the championship. Position shuffling, some locking up in the bottom of the top 10, but everyone seems to be getting through just fine. It's 30 minutes plus 1 lap here at Estoril. So they make their way now towards the Aurelia corner, and there's always a rest behind. There's lots of scrapping going on. I'm trying to pick out who that is in a second. They turn their way out to the right-hander, now towards the Gancho chicane for the first time. It's a very tricky uphill chicane here as Niall turns his way in. That's Alazari moving his way up into 8th position. More position swapping, and 1 car sideways. That's one of the MP Motors gone around. Another of the Prestige champion also. Getting themselves back underway. And we're trying to figure out the number. I think that's possibly 61 or 6, one of the 2. MP Motorsport cars, it looks like 61 would be Valentin Kluss. He starts 11th, but he's way down the order. Got some work to try and pick that one up again. So onto the pit straight for the first time to end lap number 1. It's Tecnicar who leads the way. Enzo Deligny in 2nd place, Christian Ho in 3rd. Pedro Claro under threat from Cardenas into turn 1. Cardenas looking around the outside to make it a 3-4 for the Campos Racing squad. Also there's Rinicella in 6th, De Palo in 7th. It's then 8th place then for Gracia for Alazari. 9th place for Gracia. 1 car in number 2, Noah Lyle, so he was involved in contact early on the first lap. And the road and Carling team go to work. That's car 7 off the road as well. That is car 7. That's one of the Sainteloc cars. Luciano Morano's gone off. And there's damage to the front end. Now, whether there was any relation to that, they were around each other on the grid. Noah Lyle started 19th, and Luciano Morano started in 21st. So we will see if there is a possibility that anything happened between the 2 of them. On to this 2nd lap. Let's see if Now can try to pull away here. Whether or not that's going to prompt any kind of a safety car or a yellow flag down there remains to be seen. Noah Lyle has got back going again, so he now rejoins, but he is way down to the back of the field. So the Carlin driver's got some work to do to pick his way back up the order. Top trying to break away. Just needs sort of dust being kicked up on the apex. It's really going to affect traction through this uphill chicane. There's the other car. That's car 21 off the road. 21 off the road is Alexander Abkajava, and that's also beached in the gravel, so he's extricated himself from the car. The Kazakh driver, he wants to try and redeem himself if he can in race number 2 later on, but sadly it looks like his adventure is going to go no further in his first race. So Niall then across the line, gets the first proper flying lap of the race as he comes across and puts in a, you can tell about his lap time. What's the lap time so far? He's put in a 1:41.938, but only fractionally faster than Enzo Deligny. And there's Valentin Kluss after the contact at the S's in the first lap. He's now off the road trying to replace the steering wheel, so that's a shame for him after he qualified so well just outside the top 10. So Cardenas, there's a bit of shuffling going through. It's shown that Deligny's dropping down the order, but that must be a faulty transponder because the Red Bull back driver is definitely in second place. You can see the Red Bull liveried car just there. So no change for him as they come up the hill now. Now as they come up towards the beginning of the lap 4 now, on lap 3. And there's a bit of battle going on here between Cardenas and Minicello's here. So looking here as they lock up. The lock up there from, so that's possibly De Palo in the mix as well. So Clero ahead of Cardenas, Rinicella, and then De Palo. So nice little stack up here between some of the Camposh and the MP Motorsport and Camposh machines. So Campos are getting quite stacked up here at the moment. The Christian Ho, Cardenas and De Palo all in the mix towards the front. Nard continues to lead. Big slide there from Christian Ho as he tried to turn the car into just the left-hander on the exit of the S's. Now onto the Parabolica Ayrton Senna, named after the great man himself, the former 3-time world champion. And as the teams watch on from the pit wall, it should be pretty intriguing to see how this one all plays out. So, 3 laps in the books. Niall continues to lead by almost a second. And it's now Christian Ho's turn to start putting the pressure on Enzo Deligny as they come down towards the end of the pit straight. Clara, Cardenas, Rinicella stick. And Rinicella can bring up the Palo. But it's Gianni Alazzari in 8th place. Gianni currently comes into the weekend in 18 points. That's one car running a little wide. That was Clara making a mistake, and now he's under threat from Cardenas up the inside, exiting the Lamy corner on the exit the hairpin. He's got the inside line for the next corner, which is a left-hander, but Cardenas tries to fight it round the outside to take 3rd place. They're also going to be wheel to wheel. Cardenas over the curb on the exit, but he puts the barrel down better, and the next corner, which is the kink for the right-hander, should give him the place, but Clara doesn't want to give it up. They are still side by side, wheel to 3rd place, down towards the interior. Underbrakes. The Brazilian has to give it up. Because squeezing right to the outside line, there's also give Rinicella and De Palo a chance to get involved. Here comes Rinicella, the Italian, to a teammate. Now the inside line advantage goes to Cardenas. And you hold on this time by. Has to give it up. And they are still side by side. This is magnificent Formula 4 racing, and they still haven't gone a step left off the wheel. Clero back up the inside into the chicane, and he somehow keeps in front. I have to ask the question after the mistake. They were side by side for practically half a lap, and they still held on. And this has now really caused Clero to become the cork in the bottle, because look at the cars that are starting to form up behind him. You've got Cardenas, Rinicella, De Palo, and Alazzari all trying to squeeze their way past him. The top 3 are pulling away. It is now all the 4th place here between these 5 cars down the straight. There's still plenty of time to go as we make our way down towards turn 1 for the this is for 5th time. And now you see here, this is a chance for Cardenas to defend this time as Rinicella looks to the outside. It's a lock-up from Clero in front, and the MP Motorsport cars are right here. Now this is a replay at the start you can see here. We didn't even start from the first few rows. And you can see initially Niall had the inside line to defend, and then just around the outside you saw Christian Ho was going for it. Deligny almost went trying to defend himself from Ho by attacking on the inside and couldn't quite make it stick, and that's the mistake which Clero made. Big sideways moment over the curbs. He was lucky just about to get away with that, but then that put him under threat from the cars behind, and that in turn was what put him under threat for half a lap and forced him to race as hard as he did. Now towards the hairpin run of a time. This is on lap 5. Lap time wise at the front, it was last time by putting the lap times. Caps going, it's personal best, it's purple sectors for most, personal best at least, but Niall just lapping a couple of tenths quicker so far on this lap and trying to pull away even more. This is the further back. This was what was happening. Oops, and that was contact between the transit's number 14, I think it might have been. It might have been Keanu Alazari, I think. So Alazari was involved in that, and he was battling, trying to get past that group of cars that involved DePalo, and I think also in there was possibly Rinicella. But no, I think we'll have to wait and see on the actual running order if he's still there or not. Yeah, I can see that Alazari's dropped down to 16th last time he came across the line, so it was him involved in that little skirmish. The driver that's now trying to latch onto that train appears to be Yamakoshi, because he's only about a second behind now in 8th position. You see the difference in gaps as they turn out through the right hand at curve 1. Now, up through the hairpin once again. So the top 3 really have got that advantage now. After that battle between Clero and Cardenas, it's given Niall Deligny and Ho the real chance to pull away now and just have their own private battle, and they seem to be keeping pretty firm in terms of gaps between each other, so there's not too much between them. In the pit lane is car 41, and 41 is Fernanda Barrichello, so that's Fernanda Barrichello for Monial Motorsport, I'm afraid. He's being wheeled backwards into the garage. Not a great start for the son of the former Ferrari and Brawn F1 driver. Pack makes its way through. We're coming up to 1/3 distance already in this first race of the weekend for Spanish F4 in Estoril. Make their way through the Gancho chicane once again on lap 6. And Deligny now starting to pick up the pace a little bit in the end of the sector. He was a fraction, about a 1/10.5 faster than Niall on this point. So the gap was 1.1 at the last split. Now we're going to come down a little bit more as they come across the line. Really quite a bit of groove now. He's lost a bit of time in the last sector. Dropped him down to 1.2 up the line. Let's see how this second third of the race plays out. Make their way now towards the hairpin at Lamy. Turn the way out through the right-hander. Now back up towards the end of the complex at Curva VIP. And again, just that group of cars for 4th place is just starting to compress together again now. You can see Fernanda Barrichello's car looking a little sorry for itself in the pit lane, but sadly out of the race. And we'll have to try again for the 2 races tomorrow. So here, the battle you're looking at here, this is Rinicella versus DePalo. Very much a scrap between MP Motorsport and Campos at this one. In terms of the battle in the Teams Championship, because there is a Teams Championship in this Spanish F4. At the moment, Campos Racing Drivers Development, where MP Motorsport lead with 295, and then you have Campos Racing Drivers Development on 243. They also have sub-teams on top of that. There's Campos Racing on 212, and then the MP Motorsport, so Motorsports plural, is down on 37. So they've obviously split them up to try and fit the criteria for teams that can run, different drivers in the mix to try and strengthen their chances. Rest of the top 10 outside of the top 8, you've also got in 9th place car 33, which is Ricardo Gracia in 9th place, and Alex Ninovic in P10. And Alex was up there in the early stages of the season trying to pick up some good results. Ninovic, looking at his results from throughout the season so far, his best finish so far has been a top 5, and that was 5th in the very first race of the season at Spa. But since then, he's been hovering around the base of the top 10 and not really picking up the results he'd be hoping for. Meanwhile, this man is certainly trying to continue his championship lead, which is Teofil Niall. And I believe Teofil Niall, I was getting some chatter before the races that I believe he's trying to, or is racing on a Spanish license rather than, or under Spanish nationality rather than French. I just want to make sure I can clarify that before I get that incorrect. Yeah, apparently it has a Spanish license and that one, but he's still listed as being a French driver, at least initially when he started the season. And Frenchman Enzo Deligny, who's been down to young Carter, was picked up on the Red Bull program, and of course running in full Red Bull livery, as many of their juniors do. He's pulling back away from Niall at this point. He's now coming under threat from the Campos Racing man Christian Ho, man from Singapore. That was 1.8 seconds at that point. It's now looking a little bit more. So Niall's starting to find his groove now. He has the fastest lap of the race. 1:39.654. One of only two drivers that have dropped into sub-140s. The other driver being Christian Ho. To 39.6 for Teofil Niall for his best time. And 39.7 for Christian Ho. Whereas Deligny hasn't broken into the 1:40s just yet. Gap is up to 2 seconds now as we come towards half of this first of 3 races. And I wonder if possibly the hot temperatures are starting to potentially cause some problems for one or two drivers out there. And maybe they're not used to slightly as warm temperatures at this point of the season as before. Another new fastest lap of the race put in, and it looks as though yes, Deligny has gone to a 1:40, a sub 140 now. New fastest lap of the race for Niall, 1:39.5 compared to a 39.9 for Deligny. So despite setting personal bests, in terms of Deligny, Niall still put in a new fastest lap of the race and extended that gap by another, around about 4 tenths or so. So at the moment, the man who has a Spanish licence is in the mix. Looking at some of the biggest movers. The biggest mover in the field is the number 11 car, which is the high nationality driver of Carl Bennett. He started way back in 32nd on the grid, currently running at the moment in 23rd or so. So a bit more shuffling around here. You can see the relevant gaps to each other on the left-hand side. As Niall turns his way through the Gancho chicane. As they now turn their way out through the left, right, and then left again through towards the pit straight once again. We're going to reach half distance. It's 30 minutes plus 1 lap. And you get different points awarded based on the different race lengths. So if it's a 30-minute race, you get 25 points for a win, 18 points per second. Effectively, it's the same scoring system as F1. If it's a 25-minute race, then you simply knock off the 25 points. So first get 18 points rather than 25, and everyone essentially, the points shift up by 1 position, but you just lose the 25 points for the victory. So everything sort of seems to have calmed down at this point. Pedro Claro, after his early mistakes and battling with Cardenas, seems to have found his groove again, and Cardenas, Rinichella and DePallo are falling into line. There's the Hiyu Yamakoshi, the Japanese driver, up in 8th position. Yamakoshi, looking at his results so far this year, he's back in 20th in the points. He missed the rounds at Spa and also at Jerez last time out last weekend. So back on the grid once again. And his best result to date, looking at his results throughout the season, was actually P9. That was in his first appearance of the year in race 1 at Aragon. So as they make their way up the hill towards the left-hander, still top 3 as it was, and you can see the big gap. You see Claro nearly 5 seconds back on Christian Ho, so he's got some work to do really to try and close back in. Whether he's just conserving his tyres a little bit and just trying to hold on so he can just make sense of it a little better and try and back a bit more. He's lost another 10th in that last sector, so he's still trying to push on. And there's 4 cars that are on his wheel tracks, aren't even going just yet. So, you can see there. Deligny now being chased down by Christian Ho. Let's look at their lap times this time by to see how they're looking. Across the line goes Niall. There's a 39. Right, well, Deligny's done a personal best. He's gone personal best sectors 2, 3, and 4. So he has got a little quicker, but it looks as though that Christian Ho was slightly quicker still. You can see the comparison in lap time at the bottom of the screen. Faster by 19 thousandths of a second, which means it's just about 0.6 between them. It's a relative stalemate between the two. So looking. A very interesting battle. It might be quite a battle of strategy by the looks of it. We will wait and see. So out of curve 2, we're up towards the Lamy corner. A little further back now, looking further in the pack. Looking down the order, we're seeing here Two more of the drivers that are battling amongst it. I think this is the scrap with Al Rafai and Al Khazari. This is the 12th position backwards because I recognise Al Khazari's car there. Also in there would look like it was Juan Cota, one of the DriveX school machines. So the gap now is 2.3 seconds between Niall and Deligny, with Ho holding on to third place, and he has got clawed a couple of tenths back on the Frenchman. They make their way back towards the Gancho chicane, and it looks as though I think Christian Ho looks as though he wants to really put an attack with those two, because he doesn't look comfortable pace-wise. He's pushing as hard as he can, but Ho just needs to have that little bit more in reserve to be able to close in a bit more, particularly in these warm temperatures. Just remind you, it is in Estoril this weekend. They're currently showing us 34 degrees ambient temperature, with nearly 50 degrees in track temperature. So this is going to be playing havoc with the tyres this weekend. Really, really hot temperatures. It's also not very humid. It's 32% humidity. Also, low on winds as well. So that was it's quite might feel a little bit dry out there. It's quite dry heat we have to try to cope with. So 11 minutes and 15 seconds plus 1 lap still to go. Make the way uphill towards the complex of Curva 2 and then Lamy and then Curva VIP. Thereupon Niall is putting in the performance for Sainteloc Racing this afternoon. Look at last lap times to see if we can see how they're looking. On this first sector alone, Deligny was a tenth faster. So he's trying to claw that gap in. Now, whether he was conserving tyres a little more, how this next 10 minutes plays out is going to be quite telling as to whether he was just hanging back to reserve his tyres in this heat, or whether he was just fading a little bit in terms of actual pace. He's got the gap out between himself and Ho to 7 tenths now, and the second sector he's pulled just about another 3/4 of a tenth of a second, so he is starting to very slowly edge and come back at him. He's matched Niall in the third sector. Gap is still hovering around 2.1, 2.2 seconds. So still as it was. Come out through the complex to begin lap 13 to complete 12 laps in the books here in this race. You see here Pedro Claro. There's the gap you can see to the top 3. Now there was a warning sign going out for somebody. 2 cars being warned for track limits, 71 and 31. 71 is Federica Al Rafai for Rodin Carlin, and 31 is Sebastian Murray. Both of them getting warnings for excessive track limits. As this battle continues on for 4th position backwards, it really has calmed down. Oh, as Clever's a bit wide again over the curve. Remember what happened last time he did that? He ended up in a side-by-side battle for half a lap practically with Andreas Cardenas, and Andreas is part of the Fernando Alonso's A14 management stable, so he's one of the 2-time world champion's current proteges. Down towards just further back here of a replay. This is car 5, which is one of the MP Motorsport cars. That's Alvisa Rodella, and that was contact with one of the Sainteloc cars. That was Theodor Jensen, and they were battling at that point, I think somewhere towards the bottom of the top 20. So that was around about, yeah, Jensen's come through 20 seconds, so there's a few skirmishes around at that point. So make the way out through the Parabolica Ayrton Senna. Now down the pit straight. Gap is up to 2.4, just about 2.5 seconds now. And this time by, has it gone out or has it decreased? It's just about stabilised, but it is practically 2.4 seconds now. There's half a second between Deligny and Ho, as Ho is just getting in the slipstream and trying to close back in here. He knows there's an opportunity to try and squeeze past if he can get through. But the Singapore driver just about holding on. This is further back. This is one of the GRS team cars. That was car 77. So car 77, in fact. That was 72. It might have been actually 70. trying to forget exactly who that was, but 72, which was Eloy Gonzalez, who was off the road there. So Gonzalez, who has gone for a bit of an excursion after he qualified fairly well on the grid by the looks of it. So we continue to look at Noah Deligny. And Ko is just keeping him honest here in third place. Still half a second between the fight for second place. And Niall has got that 2.5 second gap. You look further back now, you see there's a 6 second gap between third and fourth. And this is the fight that's been going on since the early stages of the race between Clero, Cardenas and Rinicella. Cardenas finds himself the Campos meat in an MP Motorsport sandwich at the moment. And so far it's Clero who's doing quite well. Clero, who started the season very strongly. He won a good free-race start, very contrasting conditions. And since then, Clero coming to the weekend in 5th in the points, and he's also picked up as well the 2nd place that weekend. And then since then, he's actually opened the top 5. 3 more, once at Aragon and twice at Navarro. His last results were pretty awful. Correct. He didn't finish 5 and 10 last time out a week ago. Here the leaders running over the curbs, exiting curve 2, so all looking good as they come through the right-hander. And as we make our way out of curve VIP and onto this back section of the circuit, lap times look as though they're stabilising. I'm just keeping an eye on the sector times here, and I can see that it's very even between the top 3 cars. All of them put in a 19.9. Everyone does a in the second sector, so evenly matched for pace between these 3, and they're comfortably fastest cars out there on the track. The one car that's had quite a strong first sector is Alex Ninovich in this lap time. He's actually matching lap times, but look at the sectors across the board. I mean, even the first 11 or 12 cars, their first sectors only had a couple of tenths in between it in terms of actual pace. So it's a really talented and equally spread field in Spanish F4 this weekend, particularly here at Estoril. 5 minutes, about 10 seconds and a lap to go. So of course, when the timer hits 0, when they cross the line when the timer hits 0, then they'll have one more time around the Estoril circuit. Now down the pit straight once again. Niall has this race under control for Sainteloc. And Deligny now looks as though he's got a small reprieve, trying to pull away from Christian Ho here. And again, just how evenly matched they are. It's literally 16 thousandths of a second between the 2 drivers as they make their way out of curve 1 and into curve 2 on lap 16 of this first Spanish F4 race here at Estoril. One of 2 venues that are outside of Spain. The first being, of course, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium right at the start of the season. The rest of the campaign will see them head to the Circuito Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. And then, of course, the home of the Spanish Grand Prix, the Circuito de Barcelona Catalunya, to round off the season. Here's the fight for 4th between Pedro Clero, the Brazilian, Andres Cardenas from Peru, and Valerio Rinicella from Italy. So both of the MP Motorsport cars running in 4th and 6th. Cardenas is there in 5th. He's trying to just keep himself in line, keep himself in the mix here. He's got an opportunity to try and make it happen, then one of these guys will try and jump. But Clero, after his slightly sort of shaky moment of having to defend from Cardenas, he has settled down a little bit, and he's almost forcing Cardenas and Rinicella to run at his pace. And in fact, Rinicella closed a little bit more under braking for that right-hander at Aurelia. And back towards the Ganto chicane, just uphill, just the switch back of left and then right as they climb their way towards the end of the lap once again. Coming up to the end of lap 16, still 3.5 minutes to go, just under, plus 1 lap, of course. Again, keeping an eye on those lead gaps. It's still 2.5 seconds between Niall and Deligny. And then Ho in 3rd place, still 6 tenths back. You can see the top 3 as they at the top of the shot coming down the pit straight. No real change. And also, not out of this totally, is Matteo De Palo, the fellow Italian. He's up there in 7th position. Yamakoshi still 8th. It's Gracia in 9th, and Alex Ninovich has climbed up the order in 10th. Alex started back in 12th, I think fell back a little bit. Now he's up into the top 10. Good work for him. A couple of drivers I think are struggling a bit in terms of pace. We know that Kiani Alazari had a spin and got tagged here up at Lamy Corner earlier on. One driver's a little bit further back that I was expecting is Noah Strumstedt. He had a quite good start to the season, particularly at Spa. 6th in the championship. Doesn't have a win to his name, but he has scored 3 podiums and another further 3 top 5s, and hasn't finished outside the top 10 of every single race that he started and actually finished. So this would be his first non-top 10 finish of the races that he has completed if he stays in 12th position, which is a little bit off the pace for him and maybe not as comfortable as he was hoping. There's a lock up there from Cardenas. And this is further back here. This is 71 and 75. This is Federica Al Rafai, and he was taking up the inside there by car 75. 75 was Noah Strumstedt, I think that was. That was from that was Strumstedt or Lynn Hodenius, one of the two. I should have really identified that better, but we'll come back to that in a second. So track limits warning for car 28. So car 28 is Isaac Barashi, who started way back down the order. Barashi back in 28, so he's quite way down the order. Any penalties will only further compound his dissatisfaction with this race. So closing in onto what will be the last couple of laps in this race now. Lap times, of course, have been in the 1:39s, 1:40. So we are going to go on to 2 laps to go here. Remember, the timer will hit 0. When they cross the line, they will have 1 more lap to go at the end of this one. So they won't see the checker flag this time. It will be the next time around. And you see here that Claro has just been closed a little more now by Cardenas. I wonder if he's been biding his time to try and consider a move late here in the race. Let's just see what he's got up his sleeve here. Now they come up out of Kerber VIP, and you see that Cardenas is closing in a little more than he did earlier on. He's just biding his time a little more. This is, meanwhile, still pushing on Christian Hope. How hard he's pushing a lock up on the inside front to take through the Parabolica interior. And there, just ahead of them, you can see, is Teofil, who is placed firmly under control since the start from pole position. The championship leader looks as though he's only 1 more tour of the Estoril Grand Prix circuit away from picking up what will be his 6th win of the season. The Ligny, of course, will be hopeful for another podium, and if he can hold on to 2nd, that will be his 5th second place finish of the season. He's had so far 5 podiums in total, plus a victory at Aragon and a further top 5 finish. That was 4th in the second race. He wants to really pick up another strong podium finish and keep himself well in the hunt for the top 3 in the championship, particularly as he'll be scoring a bag of points ahead of Rinicella, because Rinicella's back in 6th place. This will really help him to try and close a little more. So, final lap in this first Spanish F4 race here at Estoril. Teofil Nile has got this race seemingly in his grasp, but he has to get around the final lap of Estoril here in order to seal the deal. He's got 3 seconds on the lead in 2nd place. We look at the fight now for 4th, 5th and 6th. Pedro Claro, Andres Cardenas and Valerio Rinicella. Of course, as we said, he's losing valuable points to one of his main rivals in the championship, particularly to Teofil Nile, who will go on to win this race, all being well, and so will Deligny in 2nd place. Claro, after his early wobble in the opening couple of laps, has managed to calm down, drive a nice, smooth and steady race. And despite them all closing up, he's not cracking that much under pressure. Still has half a lap to go to survive this. As they make their way down towards the Parabolica interior for the final time, Claro has this one seemingly under control. Meanwhile, here's our scrap for 2nd as they go through the shot. Ho is as close as he's ever been. I think Deligny may well just hold on unless he makes one final mistake in this last sector. Up through the Yankee came for the final time. The top 3 looks just about set, but is 4th, 5th and 6th about to change. Rinicella's getting closer to Cardenas than Cardenas is to Claro. But for this man, Teofil Nile, as he works his way out of the Parabolica Ayrton Senna, is going to drive. That's certainly made him proud. It'll be his 6th win of the season, and he'll kick off his weekend in Portugal in the best possible way. A fantastic lights the flag win from pole position. Teofil Nile wins the first race of the weekend in Spanish F4 at Estoril with a fantastic drive from pole position. The Sainteloc crew celebrate on the pit wall. It's 2nd for Red Bull Junior Enzo Deligny and 3rd for Christian Ho, who gave up so much of a fight and pushed as hard as he dared, but he finishes 7/10 off in the end. Pedro Claro does hold on for 4th, ahead of Andres Cardenas in 5th, Valerio Rinicella in 6th, Mattia De Palo 7th, Yamakoshi 8th, Gracia in 9th, and Alex Ninovic, after starting 12th, finishes in the top 10. Up to the checker flag, Cardenas finishes 11th, Strumstedt 12th, and the final few cars across the line, this was Al Rafai and Alcazari nose to tail. And the rest of the pack comes streaming through to take the checkered flag. Well, there's your race winner, Teofil Nile. A fantastic performance for the French Spaniard. We'll call him both because apparently he can claim both in some cases. And a great victory for Sainteloc as well. And it's great to see Sainteloc, who've been expanding their horizons in recent seasons, of course. Mainly known for running particularly Audis in GT racing these days. But good to see them branching into the world of single-seaters. And certainly that's paying off, particularly with a young talent like Teofil Nile. And that's win number 6. And that'll be 25 juicy championship points that will go towards his lead. He'll certainly be thankful for those. That will take him over the 200 mark, and it'll put him in prime position to try and add to that tally with 2 races tomorrow. Deligny will certainly be happy to take some points out of Rinicella, as will Christian Ho. Christian came into the weekend in 4th in points, so he will certainly taken some out as well. And Pedro Clara would have done so too. Some of the drivers that would have really been disappointed with that, Noah Strumstead and Keanu Alazari. Andres Cardenas will also be happy getting a top 5. He has only started to come into form most recently. He picked up a win in the 2nd place at Jerez and a 4th place also, so he was in the top 5 all weekend. But he missed the first opening round and has been pretty decent all the way through, getting quicker and quicker as the season's gone on. Drivers make their way into pit lane after what was another entertaining race for F4 Spanish Championship here this season, and a great way to kick off their Estoril adventure as we get set for 2 more races tomorrow. I'm sure that Teofil Nile will want to try and add to that tally once more. There's the number 1 board, and it's reserved for the man in car number 4. Pulls up, and I'm sure we'll be out of the car and celebrating with the team very, very shortly. But again, strong podiums for Enzo Deligny and for Christian Ho. But there's your race winner. No other reason for him to get out of the car and do anything else but jump on the top step, and it's celebration time. He's definitely happy with that one. It's hugs and handshakes all round. Why not? 6th win of the season, very much deserved. A fantastic performance for Teofil and for the Sainteloc. High fives and handshakes all round. Super job. Well done. Some congratulations with his fellow drivers very, very shortly. And Enzo Deligny, of course, will be happy with that. Just to recap where this will put him results-wise, it is his 5th second-place finish of the season. Only one weekend that he hasn't finished the 2nd place, and that was actually the opening weekend at Spa. Every other, he's finished in 2nd place in a race at least once. Second twice at Aragon. Second twice, once at Navarro and again at Jerez in the 2nd race. Quite a good record. Teofil Nile looks pretty content with that victory. He's given the Harncourt cap. Here's some of the highlights from the race. Now, this is what happened to one of the MP Motorsport cars. This was what happened to Valentin Kluss at the Gancho chicane, and he was just tagged spin. Oh, and that was what happened to the number 7 car. That was Luciano Morano. He got pretty much harpooned up at turn 1. And this was what happened to Pedro Clara, which was set off that fantastic side-by-side battle with Cardenas over what was 3rd place. You saw they went side-by-side into Lamy, then into VIP curve, then through the kink up towards the Parabolica Interior. I've never seen this back side-by-side because, again, they continued at it all the way through. And that was what happened there. That was Alcazari, I think, trying to get past the MP Motorsport machine that looked like a Rinicella and just getting caught up in the rear of that. Because of that, he lost out several spots. This is the recovery from Alazari up the inside of 66. That was the Geronimo Barberio machine. This is where Christian Ho was continuing on to press onto the rear end of Enzo Deligny. So excellent performances from those at the front all round. And here's the result. Teofil Nile takes victory by 3.2 seconds for Enzo Deligny in 2nd place. Christian Ho rounds out the podium from Pedro Clara in 4th and Andres Cardenas in 5th. And Valerio Rinicello, Matteo De Paolo, Hiyu Yamakoshi, Ricardo Gracia and Alex Ninovic complete the top 10. Lynn Hodius was 11th, from a disappointed Noah Strumstead back in 12th. Then Al Rafai Alazari down in 14th after his spin. Geronimo Barberio in 15th. Then Juan Cota, Eric Janet, Pablo Snarazan, Alvise Rodello. And the Carrasquedo in 20th, and it's Sebastian Murray, Theodore Jensen, Maximiliano Restrepo, Flavio Oliveri, Georgi Zarowski, Griffin Peebles, Carl Bennett, Isaac Barashi, Kari Darianani, and Noah Lyle, who pitted with a damaged front wing. And the cars we lost were Barrichello, Luciano Moreno, and also we lost on that as well, Alexander Abkajava and Valentin Kluss as well. So underneath the sunshine of Estoril, we're going to be getting set for our podium presentation here in Portugal, and it's hot work for the drivers out there today, but certainly they've been earning it pretty well out there in these conditions. So we wait for them. Some of the clear up will take place. And looking a bit further back for some more of the highlights. This was the scrap that was going on towards the end of the race for more places, more cars moving up. There was car number 9 that was going through the chicane. Car 9 was Georgi Zanavsky. A little further back in some of the battles up and down the field, that was one of the GRS cars, number 28, making a move. That was Isaac Barashi, the Brit, scrapping away with the 88 machine of Griffin Peebles. So good to see the Tecnicar cars getting in the mix. And that was what happened in the end to Isaac Barashi as he ran wide. No, that was car 11 actually. That was car 11. That was Carl Bennett, who also ran wide as well. So the GRS cars getting involved in all sorts. That was the move from the 71 of Federica Al-Rafai on one of the Campos machines. Lots of scrapping, and this is the battle that went all the way to the end for 4th position between Pedro Claro, Cardenas, Renicella and De Palo. Lots of key battles between MP Motorsport and Campos, particularly when they're in the scrap for the Teams Championship and trying to bag as many scores as they can. And so, amazing stuff from Spanish F4, and as the podium presentations get underway, we're going to sign off for our first race today. We've got more action for Spanish F4 tomorrow. And so, as the podium gets underway here, we'll sign up in just a second. And so, the national anthem will be playing for Spain. So, the 3rd place trophy, of course, goes to Christian Ho. Excellent stuff for the Campos Racing driver, the man from Singapore. 3rd place for him in that race. 2nd place, of course, goes to the Frenchman, the Red Bull Junior, Enzo Deligny. He picks up the runner-up spot with his 6th win of the season and continuing his championship lead. It is victory for the Spaniard, Teofil Nile. Trophy aloft and celebration at the top of the podium. So the hats off for the national anthem, what will be Spain. As the Spanish national anthem rings out, we reserve the national anthem. So congratulations to Teofil Nile for victory in race 1 of Spanish F4 here at Estoril. There's 2 more races where that came from. Let's see if he can do any better to match that feat in tomorrow's 2 races. But from all of us here at Estoril for the time being, all of you Spanish F4 fans, thanks for watching. Tune in tomorrow for both of our races. From Scott Woodwist and all of us here at Estoril, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you for more Spanish F4 action tomorrow. Bye for now.